He's a monster. He looks like a monster, and he is a monster. Some people get the faces they deserve.
Today, we're looking at the most famous and well-known celebrities currently serving time in prison, the shocking crimes that put them there, and revealing one last name no one expected to see behind bars.
Tamara Sitch is now heading to prison for the next 17 and a half years, followed by 8 years of probation. Now
Hit subscribe and stay with us to the very end. R. Kelly. For years, R. Kelly was untouchable, the voice of R&B and the soundtrack to millions of lives. But fame can hide shadows. Behind the music, behind the spotlight, something darker was building. In the early 2000s, disturbing rumors surfaced. A leaked tape changed everything. What fans thought was fiction suddenly felt too real. Yet, the star stood tall, untouched, unbothered, unstoppable. By 2008, he walked free. His concerts still sold out. His name still meant magic. Then, 2019 came like a storm. The surviving R. Kelly series gave a voice to silence. Testimonies revealed years of manipulation, control, and pain hidden behind the glamour. The world finally listened and turned away. In 2022, a New York court found him guilty of racketeering and related offenses. In 2023, another sentence in Chicago followed. 20 more years, mostly concurrent. Now, with an effective 31-year term, R. Kelly won't walk free until at least 2045. The man who once sang, "I Believe I Can Fly," now faces a far different reality. A legacy shattered. A voice silenced by his own choices. Jen Shah. When The Real Housewives of Salt Lake City premiered in 2020, Jen Shah instantly became a fan favorite. She was loud, glamorous, unapologetically dramatic. The kind of reality TV personality who turned every moment into a headline. She flaunted her luxury lifestyle, her marriage to college football coach Sharif Shah, and the image of a woman who had it all.
We basically have to FaceTime a lot. It's kind of like a FaceTime marriage, if that was a thing.
But what viewers didn't know was that behind the glitz, there was a dark secret. In 2021, federal agents arrested Jen Shah in the middle of filming. The charges? Wire fraud and money laundering, part of a massive telemarketing scheme that targeted elderly and vulnerable people. She was accused of tricking them into buying fake business services, taking thousands of dollars from those who could least afford it. The story shocked fans and her castmates. As the trial unfolded, Shah continued to proclaim her innocence, until she didn't. In July 2022, she pled guilty to conspiracy to commit wire fraud.
At the sentencing hearing Friday, Jen apologized to her victims, admitting, "My actions have hurt innocent people."
In January 2023, she was sentenced to 6 years and 6 months in prison, followed by 5 years of supervision. But after good behavior and rehabilitation, her sentence was reduced. She is now scheduled for early release in August 2028. From diamonds to prison walls, Jen Shah's fall is a reminder that reality TV can't hide real consequences. Suge Knight. Few figures in hip-hop are as legendary or feared as Suge Knight. The co-founder of Death Row Records, he helped shape the sound of the 1990s, launching artists like Dr. Dre, Snoop Dogg, and Tupac Shakur. His presence was intimidating, his reputation larger than life. To some, he was a visionary. To others, a menace. But the line between power and violence blurred quickly. Stories of intimidation, assaults, and criminal ties surrounded Knight's empire. Then came January 2015, a moment that sealed his fate. On the set of Straight Outta Compton, Knight got into a confrontation with 2 men, Terry Carter and Clee Bone Sloan. Moments later, he got into his truck, accelerated, and ran them over. Carter was killed. Sloan was seriously injured. Knight claimed it was self-defense, that he feared for his life. But prosecutors painted a different picture. In 2018, facing overwhelming evidence, he pleaded no contest to voluntary manslaughter and was sentenced to 28 years in prison. He'll be eligible for parole in 2034. Once a music mogul worth millions, Knight now spends his days behind bars, watching the world and the industry he helped build move on without him. His story remains one of hip-hop's most haunting cautionary tales. And what happened next would reveal how quickly legends can fall. Michael Jace. To fans of The Shield, Michael Jace was the calm, conflicted officer Julian Lowe, a man fighting his inner battles. Off-screen, however, his real life took a devastating turn that no script could have predicted. In May 2014, police received a 911 call.
We do also know that neighbors, some other neighbors, called 911 after they heard gunfire inside the home.
Hat wife was April Jace, a mother of two and a beloved track coach. She had filed for divorce after 11 years of marriage, and that night she returned home briefly to pick up their children. Waiting for her was Michael, armed and angry. He shot her 3 times in front of their kids. According to investigators, he mocked her love for running before pulling the trigger. Neighbors heard the gunshots. The children witnessed everything. It was one of the most shocking crimes in Hollywood's recent history. In 2016, after a 2-year trial, Jace was convicted of second-degree murder and sentenced to 40 years to life in prison. Now in his 60s, he remains incarcerated in California, far from the career and family he destroyed. But as shocking as it was, the downfall of the next name would be even darker. Tamara Lynn Sitch. In the mid-1990s, Tamara Lynn Sitch, better known as Sunny, was the face of the WWE. She wasn't just a manager, she was a phenomenon. Millions watched her every week, and by 1996, she became the most downloaded woman on the internet. In 2011, she was inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame, immortalizing her as a pioneer of women's wrestling entertainment. But behind the fame, her life spiraled into chaos. Addiction, arrests, and personal struggles turned Sunny's life into a series of tragic headlines. The most devastating came in March 2022, when she drove under the influence in Florida. Her car slammed into another vehicle, killing 75-year-old Julian Lassiter. She was 4 times over the legal limit, driving with a suspended license, and it wasn't her first offense. It was her 4th DUI in 10 years. In August 2023, she pled guilty to DUI manslaughter and related charges. The judge sentenced her to 17 years in prison, followed by 12 years of probation.
I know how it feels, how it hurts, how it tears your heart out. And for that, I'm truly, truly sorry.
A tragic fall for a woman once adored by millions, now remembered as a warning about how fame can fade and how choices can destroy lives. But next, another story showed how fame itself can turn deadly. Joe Exotic. Few people rose and fell like Joe Exotic. A flamboyant zookeeper turned internet sensation, he became a global figure through the 2020 Netflix series Tiger King. His bleached mullet, wild clothes, and bizarre feud with animal activist Carol Baskin made him both infamous and unforgettable. But beyond the memes and mayhem lay a story of obsession, cruelty, and crime. Joe Exotic, whose real name is Joseph Maldonado Passage, was accused of ordering a hit on Baskin, his longtime rival, while also violating federal wildlife laws, killing and selling tigers across state lines. In 2019, a federal jury found him guilty on 19 counts, including 2 counts of murder for hire. In 2020, he was sentenced to 22 years in prison. Though he appealed, The court only reduced his sentence by 1 year. Behind bars, Joe continues to claim innocence, calling himself a victim of political games. He even launched a presidential campaign from prison twice. But for now, the Tiger King remains caged, serving out his sentence in a federal penitentiary in North Carolina. But what came next showed that even the powerful in Hollywood weren't immune. Harvey Weinstein. He was once the most powerful man in Hollywood. Harvey Weinstein, the producer behind Pulp Fiction, Shakespeare in Love, and countless Oscar-winning films, built an empire that shaped modern cinema. Actors feared him. Studios obeyed him. And for decades, his behavior went unchecked. Then, in October 2017, the silence broke. Explosive investigations by the New York Times and the New Yorker exposed decades of sexual harassment and assault allegations against Weinstein. Over 100 women, including A-list actresses, accused him of abuse stretching back to the 1980s. It wasn't just a scandal. It sparked a revolution. The hashtag #MeToo movement, which changed Hollywood forever. In 2020, Weinstein was convicted in New York of rape and sexual assault and sentenced to 23 years in prison. In 2023, he received another 16 years in Los Angeles for separate charges. Though his New York conviction was later overturned, he remains behind bars, awaiting retrial. Now, 73 and reportedly in poor health, the man who once walked the red carpet now walks prison corridors. His empire is gone, his legacy erased. And his name, once synonymous with success, is now forever linked to abuse, power, and the cost of silence.